He wasn't supposed to be in the kitchen, not tonight, not after what happened all those years ago. But he stepped inside anyway, the door swinging shut behind him, and the whole room fell quiet. The chefs froze. The staff stepped back. The only person who didn't stop moving was her. She stood at the stove, hand steady, flame bright under the pan. The air smelled like butter, garlic, and seared rosemary. She didn't look up, not at first. But when she finally turned, slow, controlled, unbothered, he did something no one had ever seen him do. He stopped breathing, like the sight of her struck him through the chest. Everyone in that kitchen could feel it, and nobody knew why. But here's where it turns. Because the moment she met his eyes, she realized something too. She whispered, barely audible, "No, it can't be you." And that's where we're starting tonight. Before we go any deeper, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. The comments always look wild when we see viewers from every state and country at once. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss how this story unfolds. Trust me, what you're about to learn will stay with you long after the video ends. Now, let's go back to the moment that led him to this kitchen, because their lives had already crossed before tonight. They just didn't know the truth yet. He hadn't planned to return to Miami this early. His schedule was tight, full of charity board reviews, foundation audits, and another flight to San Francisco in 48 hours. But the call from the restaurant owner came with urgency, and Carter Langford understood pressure well enough to recognize when something could not be postponed. The Silver Hummingbird sat 28 floors above the city, its glass walls reflecting the coastline below. During the day it was sunlight and white linen. At night it became warm amber light, quiet voices, and oceans of money disguised behind soft laughter. The dining room had closed 2 hours ago. The city outside hummed with late-night traffic and live music from the waterfront. Inside the kitchen, the last of the dishes had been dried, stacked, and stored. Most of the staff had already clocked out. Only a few remained in the back, finishing prep for the morning crew. And Amara Pierce was still at the stove. Her hair was tied back. Her sleeves were rolled just enough to reveal the strength in her arms. Her knife rested near the chopping board, clean and sharp. She moved with calm rhythm, like someone who had worked in intense kitchens long enough to no longer flinch at anything. The flame under the skillet flickered gold. The smell of lemon butter rose with steam. She tasted with the tip of a spoon, thoughtful and quiet. She didn't try to appear graceful. She simply was. The door opened behind her with a soft click. No one spoke at first. The staff turned. Someone dropped a towel. Someone else stepped out of the way, shoulders tense, eyes lowered. The air changed. It felt like the room was holding its breath. Carter walked forward, his shoes soundless on the polished tile. His face was unreadable, his posture controlled, his presence felt more than seen. He carried authority the way some people carried fragrance. It followed him, filled the space around him. He expected a head chef in his 50s with stiff posture and a tired voice. He expected a resume more interested in medals than flavor. He expected a conversation he would forget by tomorrow morning. He did not expect her. Amara finally lifted her eyes. For 1 second, neither of them moved. His jaw tightened, just slightly. His breath faltered. There was something in his expression that did not match the room. Recognition, disbelief, and something heavier that lived behind the eyes rather than on the face. She didn't flinch. She only watched him. "Mr. Langford," one of the sous chefs said quietly, trying to break the moment, "we weren't told you were coming tonight." Carter didn't answer right away. His attention stayed on Amara, like everything else in the room had faded into background noise. She spoke first. "Are you here to taste the menu?" Her voice was gentle, steady, no nerves, no apology. It grounded the room. "Yes," he said. His tone was composed, but something in it felt strained. "If you are the one preparing it." Amara nodded once. No smile. No impression to make. No performance. "Then have a seat. It will be ready soon." He sat at the empty chef's counter. The others moved quietly around him, avoiding his line of sight. The lights buzzed softly overhead. The ocean wind tapped against the windows. Amara plated the first dish with smooth, careful hands. She slid it forward. He looked at it, but his eyes lifted to hers before he touched the fork. She held his gaze. For a moment, neither spoke. He tasted the dish slowly. A small bite first, then another, held longer this time. The others watched him without appearing to. The kitchen lights reflected in the stainless steel surfaces. The refrigerator hummed quietly. Every sound in the room seemed too loud. Amara did not look away. She stood across from him, hands resting lightly on the metal counter, observing but not waiting for approval. She had learned long ago that validation was unpredictable. Cooking was not about flattery. It was about truth. Carter set the fork down. "What is this?" His voice was calm, but not casual. "Lemon butter halibut," she answered, "with thyme, white pepper, and a citrus reduction. The sauce is reduced longer than most would choose. It holds the flavor deeper." He listened, but his expression did not shift. The staff moved quietly around them. Someone chopped scallions. Someone wrapped trays for storage. Carter took another bite, slower than the first. The flavor was warm and clean, bright. Familiar in a way memory sometimes is, not in taste, but in feeling. Something in his throat tightened. He took a breath so steady it almost appeared natural. Amara noticed, though she did not comment. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 2 years, she replied. "Head chef for 9 months. And before that?" A pause, a careful one. "Chicago." One word, it held weight. Some of the younger staff did not understand. The older ones did. They exchanged glances and kept their eyes down. Carter set the fork down again. "What brought you to Miami?" "New soil." She did not elaborate. He leaned back slightly, hands folded. The space between them felt suspended. He could have asked more. He could have questioned the rumors. He could have acknowledged the recognition neither of them had named yet. But he did not. Instead, he said, "Prepare the second course when you are ready." She nodded and turned back to the stove. The next dish came without rush. She cooked the way some people pray, not hurried, not wasteful. Present, focused. The pan hissed softly. Herbs bruised gently beneath her knife. When she plated the second dish, the night outside had deepened. Miami lights flickered across the glass window walls. The sound of distant waves rose like breathing. She placed the dish before him without flourish. He did not touch it yet. He looked at her again, studied her, not her beauty, not her posture, something beneath. "Have we met before?" His voice was quiet, almost an admission. The room stilled again. Amara's eyes did not shift. She did not swallow, blink, or draw breath too sharply. "If we had," she said, "I think we would both remember." She stepped back. The dish remained untouched. Carter did not reach for his fork. His hands rested flat on the table surface, fingers still. Something old had entered the room, unspoken, heavy, close. Neither one named it. The kitchen emptied slowly. One by one the remaining staff collected their bags, gave quiet nods, and slipped through the swinging side door. No one wanted to be the last to leave, not when the air felt thick with something unspoken. Soon it was only Amara and Carter, the low hum of the ventilation system filling the space where conversation did not. The second dish still sat untouched in front of him. Carter finally reached for the fork. He cut a piece from the fillet, lifted it, and paused just before tasting it, as if preparing for impact rather than flavor. Then he brought it to his mouth. The reaction was immediate but internal. His shoulders tightened for a moment. His breath caught. He didn't close his eyes, didn't make a sound. But the shift was there. The flavor was delicate. Ginger confit, coriander, and a slow-poached citrus oil, balanced in a way that suggested memory rather than experimentation. Amara said nothing. She began cleaning the counter beside him, wiping down the stainless steel in smooth, even motions. The cloth moved rhythmically, slow enough to show patience, fast enough to show she was not waiting on him. Carter set the fork down gently. "Who taught you to cook like this?" His tone was lower now, less formal. Amara rinsed the cloth, wrung it out, continued her work. "No one all at once," she said. "Pieces, people, places, mistakes. You learn from what you ruin before you learn from what you perfect." He watched her hands. Small scar along her index finger. A faint burn mark on her wrist. The quiet history of a kitchen life written on skin instead of words. He leaned forward slightly. "This flavor profile, it isn't common. Not here, not in Miami, not in most coastal restaurants." Amara didn't look at him. "No, it's not. It tastes like—" He stopped. The room felt smaller. Amara placed the cloth aside and turned off the stove burners one by one. The clicks echoed through the kitchen. She moved to the sink, washed her hands, dried them on a towel. Her movements were clean, uninterrupted, unhurried. Then she faced him again. "If you have something you want to ask," she said calmly, "ask it." His eyes held hers, not aggressive, not soft, searching. "Were you in Chicago 6 years ago?" he said, "the night of the fire?" The question didn't drop like a blow. It fell like something she had been expecting. Amara didn't look away, didn't shift, didn't defend. "Yes," she said, just the one word. Carter's jaw tightened. He exhaled slowly, steadying whatever moved beneath the surface. "There were reports," he began. "Stories." "I know," she answered. "Accusations." "I know." No clarification, no interview, no defense. You just left. Her gaze didn't waver. There was nothing to say then that anyone wanted to hear. Silence stretched between them. Not empty, not cold, heavy. Carter stood. The chair legs made no sound across the floor. He looked at her for one long moment, expression unreadable except for the slightest shift in his eyes, like he had just realized something he was not ready to name. He reached into his coat and retrieved a card. He placed it on the counter. "Tomorrow," he said. "Noon. I want to discuss an offer." Amara didn't touch the card. "If you accept, meet me at the address." He turned toward the door. For the first time that night, her voice held something new. Not softness, not fear, clarity. "Why me?" Carter paused, hand on the door. He didn't turn back. "Because," he said quietly, "some things don't happen twice." The door closed behind him. The kitchen lights hummed. Amara stood alone. The card stayed on the counter long after he left. White, plain, no logo, no flourish. Just an address in Wynwood and a time. Amara didn't pick it up. She finished cleaning the station, stacked the pans, rinsed the cutting board, turned off each light one by one. The city outside pulsed with nightlife and neon glow, while the kitchen settled into silence. When she finally left, she walked home instead of taking a rideshare. The night air was warm. Music drifted from open patios. Palm trees moved in slow waves under the coastal breeze. Miami was always alive, even when the day was finished. She lived above a small Cuban bakery that opened at dawn. The hallway light flickered as she climbed the stairs. Inside her apartment, the space was simple. A small sofa. A bookshelf of cookbooks, used so often the covers were soft at the edges. One framed picture of her mother and sister smiling outside their old food truck. She looked at that picture for a long moment. Then she washed her hands again, out of habit more than need, and set her knife roll beside the sink. The card from the restaurant was still in her pocket. She placed it on the table without unfolding it. She didn't need to read the address. She had memorized it the moment she saw it. She didn't sleep much. Morning came quietly. The bakery downstairs began shaping dough before sunrise. The smell of warm bread drifted upward. Amara sat at the table, hair tied loosely now, the card still waiting. She looked at the clock. 10:47 a.m. If she was going to go, she would need to leave soon. She didn't hurry. She tied her apron strings around her waist again, not for work, but because it grounded her. Hands steady, breath even. At 11:15, she finally picked up the card and tucked it into her jacket. She walked. The Wynwood warehouse district was awake by the time she arrived. Colorful murals, coffee shops, boutique studios, startups with glass doors and bright lettering. The address led to a converted industrial building. No sign. Just 2 large windows and a security keypad. She pressed the call button. The door buzzed open. Inside, the space was open and wide. Polished concrete floors, ceiling-high windows, one long table in the center, set for 2. Carter was already there, standing with his hands in his pockets, watching the street through the glass. He didn't turn when she entered. He spoke without looking at her. "You came?" "Yes." He finally faced her. "I want you to run a private tasting event for me," he said. "In Atlanta. 3 weeks from now." She listened. "It is a fundraiser, high profile, media coverage, investors, donors, people who remember everything and forget nothing." Her expression stayed calm. "I believe your work deserves to be seen," he added. She didn't move closer. She didn't step back. "This isn't charity," she said. "No," he agreed. They stood across from one another, the table between them like a border neither crossed. Then he said quietly, "And it's not a trap." Amara didn't react. Not visibly. "I'm not here to resurrect what happened in Chicago," he said. "I'm here because I know I was given a version of the story that wasn't true." The room held that statement like something fragile. Amara's voice was steady. "And what makes you think you deserve the real one?" Carter's eyes didn't shift. "I don't," he said. Silence again. Then, "But I want to hear it anyway." The light through the windows cut across the floor between them. Neither moved. They did not speak for several seconds. The space around them held the weight of a conversation that had not yet begun. Carter stood still, hands lowered now, posture less guarded than the night before. Amara didn't sit. She waited, the same quiet presence she carried in every kitchen she had ever worked in. He gestured to the long table. "Sit with me." She didn't move. "I don't need a meal to say what I need to say," she replied. He nodded once, accepting this. There was something different in him today. Less control, more truth. "I know what they said about you," he began. "That you mishandled the ventilation system, that you ignored heat warnings, that your food truck burned because of negligence." Her eyes remained steady. She didn't blink. "But the reports didn't align," he continued. "The timeline was wrong. The electrical data didn't match the pattern of an accidental fire. Someone wanted that business gone. Someone with enough influence to bury the evidence and shift the blame." Amara waited. She did not rush him. Carter's jaw tightened. "My company invested in one of the restaurants that benefited after your closure. I didn't know then. I didn't see the connection. I didn't look hard enough." Her silence wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't anger. It was protection. "You don't owe me anything for that," she said. "I know." His voice was quiet, almost level. "I'm telling you because I didn't come here to pretend I'm innocent." The room felt smaller, not suffocating, pulling the truth closer. Amara finally stepped forward and sat at the table across from him, not closer, not warmer, just present. "What do you want from me, Carter?" she asked. He held her gaze, and for the first time, there was no calculated expression behind it. "I want to give you a platform," he said. "I want people to taste your food. I want your work to be seen by the same crowd that tried to erase you." It was not an apology. It was not debt repayment. It was an opportunity sitting on the table, sharp and real. Amara didn't look impressed. She wasn't a woman swayed by doors opening. She had built her own way out more than once. "What's the catch?" she asked. Carter didn't look away. "My board will expect you to fail," he answered. "They will say your name should never have resurfaced. They will question your presence. They will try to unsettle you. She listened without changing expression. "And why involve me," she asked, "if it will cost you stability with your own partners?" He exhaled slowly. "Because the truth I was given wasn't the truth," he said, "and I'm no longer willing to build anything on lies." The afternoon light shifted across the table, a soft warmth across steel and glass. Amara's fingers tapped once against the wood, not nervous, measuring. 3 weeks, she repeated. "Yes." "Full creative control?" "Yes." "No substitutions?" Carter gave a slight nod. "Understood." She rose from her chair. "I'll send a menu," she said. "If you alter it, I walk." He stood as well, not towering over her, just matching her presence. "That won't be necessary." Amara took one step toward the door, then stopped. Not turning, she said quietly, "There are things about that night in Chicago you don't know. Things no report recorded. If I tell them, you won't be the same person you are standing here now." Carter's silence held a question he didn't voice. Amara did not answer it. She opened the door and walked out. The building felt colder when she was gone. 3 weeks moved quickly. Atlanta rose in front of them with glass towers and green canopies of old oak trees. The gala was set at the Bayshore Pavilion overlooking the water, a place built for cameras. Wide marble steps, chandeliers the size of cars, long corridors lined with framed donations and etched plaques of names people pretended not to read but memorized anyway. The event theme was Foundations and Futures, a celebration of generosity, a performance of philanthropy, where influence traded hands under the guise of kindness. Carter arrived early. He wore control like clothing, nothing out of place. Every greeting measured, every handshake meant. He spoke with board members, shook hands with mayors, nodded politely at journalists who hovered near the edges. But he kept looking toward the service entrance. Amara arrived without an entourage. No assistant, no PR, no flourish. She entered through the back, hair tied neatly, chef's coat crisp, sleeves rolled just once. The kitchen staff paused when they saw her, not in fear but in something closer to respect. Professionals recognize professionals without a word. She walked the line of prep tables and stations, checking cuts, temperatures, organization. No raised voice, no barked orders, just presence. And everything shifted in response. When she passed, conversation stopped. People straightened posture, movements became cleaner. A sous chef dropped a spoon. She didn't look up, but the sous chef stood still for a long moment before picking it up again. Carter stepped into the kitchen doorway, watching the room adjust around her. He didn't approach immediately. He waited. He understood enough to let the kitchen breathe. When she turned toward him, it wasn't dramatic, just acknowledgement. "You made it," he said. "I gave my word," she replied. She moved past him to the cold station. He followed, slowly. "Press will be heavy tonight," he said. "Many of them remember Chicago." Her hands didn't pause over the plating layout. "They'll remember Atlanta after tonight," she said. There was no arrogance in it, just certainty. The first guests began arriving in the ballroom. Music rose. Camera shutters clicked. Sequins and tailored suits swept through the entrance hall. In the kitchen, it was the opposite. Quiet control. Amara began assembling the first course. Every plate moved under her hands. Others followed her pace, not leading it. Her voice was low, steady. 2 minutes to fire the scallops. Check the acid balance on the salad dressing. Hold plating until I say. No need to repeat anything. When the first course went out, it moved like a wave across the ballroom. Silver trays, white gloves, silent steps. Carter stood at the back of the room, watching reactions. At first, there was polite tasting, then slowed chewing, then that small, unmistakable silence that happens when enjoyment interrupts conversation. A senator lowered his fork and stared at his plate. A socialite blinked more times than necessary, recalibrating memory. Someone near the front pressed a napkin to their chest like they needed a breath. Whispers rose around the tables, not gossip. Recognition. In the kitchen, Amara was already preparing the next course. She didn't need to look into the ballroom to know. But when the door swung open again, a staff runner's voice cut through the calm. Chef Pierce?" Everyone paused. "There's someone here who says they know you." The runner stepped aside. A woman stood behind him, well-dressed, confident, too composed for chance. Her eyes found Amara instantly. The room felt smaller again. Amara's hands stilled, mid-motion over a plate. Carter saw the shift. He took one step forward, not close enough to interfere, just enough to be ready. The woman smiled. "It's been a long time, Amara." No one breathed. Amara's reply came quiet, steady, deliberate. "Not long enough." The kitchen did not move. Utensils stayed still. The burners hissed quietly beneath copper pans, but no one touched them. Silence shaped the air. The woman didn't break it. She simply stood there, as though she had walked into this room 1,000 times before. Amara placed the plating spoon down with slow precision. She did not rush. She did not avert her eyes. She turned fully to face the woman. Her name came from one of the junior cooks in a whisper, barely sound at all. Tessa. Tessa Monroe, the former operations manager of the Chicago Food Truck Coalition, the one who gave interviews, the one who confirmed the story, the one who held the narrative together when the fire became headline material. Carter recognized her, though he had never met her in person. He had seen her name in the reports. He had seen the line she signed. He had seen the way her statement had closed the investigation. Tessa's smile was pleasant, polite, practiced. "You look well," she said lightly. "Miami suits you." Amara didn't answer. Tessa stepped closer, heels clicking softly across the tile. She looked around the kitchen, the staff, the precision. Her gaze swept the counters as though evaluating inventory rather than artistry. "It's impressive," she said. "All of this, after what happened. You've rebuilt yourself nicely." There was something sharp in the softness, something meant to provoke. Amara didn't rise to it. "Why are you here?" she asked. Tessa breathed out a small, almost fond laugh. "Oh, Amara. Still direct. I always admired that." She looked toward the ballroom doors where music and laughter drifted in. "You're catering Carter Langford's gala. Quite the return, though it does make people talk." Carter did not move, but something in the room shifted anyway. Tessa continued, voice smooth. "Some of the donors were concerned when they saw your name. They asked me to come, to check in, to make sure there wouldn't be any complications." It wasn't a threat spoken aloud, but it was shaped like one. Amara's answer did not change tone. "There won't be." Tessa tilted her head. "You're certain? Because you and I both know the story the public heard wasn't—" Amara cut in, not loud, just precise. "The story the public heard was the one you told them." The room held the sentence. Tessa's smile didn't break, but her eyes did not stay soft. "People believe what they're given," she said. "And they needed someone to blame. It was unfortunate, but necessary." The kitchen staff stared at their cutting boards, their hands going still. They were hearing something not meant for them, something that changed the story they thought they knew. Carter took one step forward now. "Tessa," he said, voice low, calm. "You weren't invited to this kitchen." Tessa looked at him finally, not startled, not intimidated, simply acknowledging. "Mr. Langford," she said, "your board is concerned." "My board," he replied, "does not dictate who I choose to stand beside me." Tessa's smile returned, colder this time. "Be careful," she said softly. "When you stand with someone, you also stand against someone. And you, of all people, cannot afford division right now." Amara's eyes did not leave Tessa's. "Get out," she said. Not a shout, a dismissal, the kind that ends things. Tessa didn't argue. She stepped back slowly, turned, and walked out the same way she came. No one moved until the service doors swung closed behind her. The kitchen air shifted again. Something had entered and left, but the room had not returned to how it was before. Amara exhaled once, steady and controlled, then turned back to the stove. "Fire the scallops," she said, and the kitchen moved again. But Carter didn't leave the doorway. His eyes remained on her hands, not with possession, not with admiration, with understanding. The rest of the evening unfolded with precision. Plates left the kitchen in timed procession. Silverware chimed softly in the ballroom. The low hum of polite laughter rose and fell like evening waves. No one in the dining hall sensed the shift that had taken place behind the service doors, but Carter did, and Amara did. Tessa's presence lingered like the faint smell of smoke after a candle has been blown out. Invisible, but unmistakable. Amara finished the main course presentation with the same steady control she carried into every task. Her focus didn't wobble. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice remained even as she directed the kitchen staff through the rest of service. But something in her posture had hardened. Not fear, not anger, a preparedness, a readiness for impact. Carter stayed near the edge of the kitchen doorway, not interfering, simply watching. He could see the difference. He could feel it. He had seen it before, in survivors, people who have lived through damage but refused to let it define their steps. When the final course went out and the kitchen began its slow, meticulous cleanup, the room quieted. Pots lowered to storage racks. Knives were wiped clean and rolled. The last flames died out along the stovetops. Amara washed her hands one final time. The water ran clear over her skin. When she turned, Carter was the only one still in the room. The others had left quietly, sensing something private in the air. He didn't move closer. He didn't speak first. She dried her hands and hung the towel with deliberate care. Then she looked at him. "You knew she might come." Carter didn't pretend otherwise. "Yes." "And you didn't tell me?" "No." Amara nodded once, more acknowledgement than agreement. "She was the one who signed the final report," Amara said, "the one that made sure I carried the blame." "Yes." "And she didn't act alone." Carter's jaw tightened. Not denial. Recognition. "No," he said. "She didn't." A quiet passed between them. Not empty. One full of all the things neither had said yet. Amara stepped toward the back exit where the loading bay opened to the night. He followed, a few paces behind. Outside, the air was cooler. The city buzzed in the distance, but here, behind the building, it was quiet enough to hear the wind move through the leaves. Amara leaned against the railing overlooking the water. Carter stood beside her, leaving space but no distance. For a while, they said nothing. Then she spoke, voice low. "You want the truth about Chicago?" "Yes." "And you think you're ready for it?" His breath came slow. "I don't know," he said, "but I want it anyway." She looked out over the water, eyes steady. "It didn't start with the fire," she said. "It started with a recipe." The night held the words. Carter turned his head toward her, something sharp and aware in his posture now. Not alarm, recognition. Amara continued. "Someone stole something that did not belong to them, and they needed the theft to disappear, so they made me disappear with it." She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. Carter spoke quietly. "The recipe was yours." Amara nodded. "It was my grandmother's. Passed to my mother, then to me. And they took it, packaged it, sold it, built influence with it." The city lights flickered across the water. Carter's voice dropped to almost nothing. "And the person who took it is someone I know." Amara didn't answer. She didn't have to, because he already knew. The gala music continued inside the ballroom, soft, elegant, unaware. But outside on the loading bay, the truth had begun to surface. Slow, measured, inevitable. The night stretched long after the gala ended. Guests filtered out into black cars and waiting drivers. Laughter drifted down marble steps, softened by distance. But behind the building, the water in the harbor remained still. Amara did not move from the railing. Carter stood beside her, hands resting loosely at his sides, not reaching toward her and not stepping away. The truth hung between them like a bridge not yet crossed. Amara spoke first. "My mother guarded that recipe her whole life. It wasn't written. We learned it by being beside her, measuring with instinct, timing with breath. It was never meant for profit. It was meant for family." Her voice didn't tremble. It didn't break. It carried memory with weight, not fragility. Carter's gaze remained forward. "Then someone saw its value," she continued. "Not the history, not the work, just the attention it could bring, the partnerships, the press, the investors." The harbor wind moved her hair against her cheek. She didn't brush it back. "They approached me first," she said. "Wanted to buy it, to brand it, to turn it into a chain. I told them no, so they went around me." Carter closed his eyes briefly. "A stolen legacy," he said. "A stolen identity," she corrected. "I didn't just lose my business. I lost my story, and when I tried to speak, they made sure no one heard." He swallowed, the sound quiet, tight. "You weren't just erased," he said. "You were replaced." Amara nodded, slow. "Yes." For the first time, Carter turned to face her fully. "Who took it?" Amara didn't look at him. She didn't need to. He already knew. The answer rose in his voice before she spoke. "Rafael." The name landed like a dropped blade. Rafael Cortez, his business partner, his childhood friend, the man who had stood beside him at every milestone, the man who had been trusted without question. Amara closed her eyes once. "Yes." Silence settled deep, not the absence of sound, the presence of truth. Carter's breathing shifted, controlled, tight, dangerous only to himself. He did not rage, he did not shout, he did not move quickly. He simply stood there, letting the realization reshape him from the inside out. Amara finally turned toward him. "He needed the fire," she said. "With me gone, there was no one left who could claim the recipe as mine. No owner, no witness, no origin. And with your firm backing his expansion, the narrative stayed clean." Carter's eyes lowered, shadowed. He didn't speak for a long moment. When he did, it was quiet, measured, final. "He used me." Amara did not soften the blow. "He used us both." The city lights glimmered across the water below. Cars moved like veins of light across the distant highway. But up here on the loading bay, the world had condensed to two people and the truth they now shared. Carter exhaled slowly. "I am going to expose him." Amara didn't respond with gratitude. She didn't respond with hope. She responded with truth. "You cannot do that without destroying your own foundation, your firm, your charity grants, the families who depend on your programs, your reputation, and you know it." His voice was steady. "I would rather burn what was built on theft." Her gaze held his. "Then you are not ready." He didn't look away. "Then help me be." The words were not dramatic. They weren't emotional. They were honest. Amara's expression didn't change. "Not here," she said. "Not while we stand in the ashes of what they took." She stepped away from the railing and walked toward the loading bay door. Carter remained where he stood. As the door opened, Amara paused, one hand resting against the frame. She didn't turn back, but her words carried across the quiet. "If we do this, every secret comes out, including the ones you've never said aloud." The door clicked shut behind her. Carter didn't move. The harbor wind moved around him. He stayed there until the sun began to rise. Morning came without softness. Atlanta's skyline glowed gold in the early light, but the warmth didn't touch him. Carter stood in the hotel suite overlooking the city, untouched coffee cooling beside him, jacket still draped over the back of the chair where he'd left it hours earlier. He hadn't slept. His phone buzzed again. Raphael's name. Persistent, exact, predictable. Carter didn't answer. He let it ring until it stopped. He finally moved, not toward the phone but toward the window. The view looked unchanged, but everything beneath it was different now. A knock sounded at the door, soft, expected. His assistant entered, tablet in hand. "The board wants a debrief," she said. "Press response drafted. They'd like your review before noon." He didn't turn. "Tell them I'll handle it later." She hesitated, long enough to mean she knew something was wrong, but she didn't ask. Instead, she placed her tablet on the table and left. The room settled again. He reached for his phone at last, but instead of calling Raphael, he opened his email. Search bar. One name. Amara Pierce. There were no emails between them, no digital thread, no written history. He closed the device and finally left the suite. The Silver Hummingbird kitchen was quiet when he walked in. Too early for lunch prep. The lights were dim. Only one person was inside, Amara. She was sitting at the small metal prep table, not cooking, hands folded, eyes distant. She didn't look surprised when he entered. She didn't stand. He didn't speak immediately. He crossed the room slowly and sat across from her. The metal table was cold between them. Amara lifted her gaze. "Raphael will reach out to you today," she said. "Maybe sooner." "Yes." "You'll want to believe him." "Yes." The honesty cost him nothing now. The lie had already broken. "He will tell you I'm lying, that I misunderstood, that I'm trying to reclaim something that was never mine." Carter's jaw tightened. "He's already been preparing that version," she added. Carter leaned forward slightly, not aggressive, pulled, drawn. "Tell me what really happened," he said. "No pieces, no half-truths, the whole of it." Amara's hands unfolded slowly, not shaking, just steadying. "It was raining that night in Chicago," she began. "The ventilation had been working fine for weeks. I checked it myself. But when we lit the burner to test for opening, the hood didn't draw. The heat sat heavy in the air. It wasn't normal. I knew it. I told Tessa. She told me to run service anyway." Carter listened without blinking. "And the wiring?" he asked quietly. Amara nodded once. "The wiring had been altered, slowly, over time, so it would look like overuse. Vandalism, age. But it was deliberate. Someone who understood the system did it." Her gaze didn't waver. "Someone who wanted a fire they could trace back to me. Someone who could gain from my loss." The truth sat between them, weighted, clear. No space for doubt now. Carter exhaled slowly. "Raphael funded the insurance claim," he said. "He bought out the damaged properties. He secured exclusive rights to 3 of the restaurant partnerships that formed afterward." Amara's voice softened, not in emotion, but in clarity. "He didn't just want the recipe. He wanted to erase the one person who could prove it wasn't his." The room did not feel empty. It felt exact. Carter leaned back, eyes narrowing with the kind of realization that doesn't burn, it cuts. "He needs me to believe his version," Carter said. "No," Amara replied. "He needs you to protect his version." Silence. A cold, clean, necessary silence. Carter spoke again, voice quiet, grounded. "If I take him down, everything tied to him burns with him." "Yes." "My name, my philanthropy, my company, my board position." "Yes." "My reputation." Amara held his gaze. "Yes." He didn't look away. "I'll do it anyway." Her face didn't soften, her shoulders didn't drop. But something shifted, something small, something earned. "You don't get to do this alone," she said. He nodded once. "Then we do it together." Amara stood. He stood with her. There were no dramatic declarations, no touch, no closeness, just alignment. For the first time, not against each other, not around each other, but with each other. The door to the kitchen swung open behind them. Footsteps stopped. Rafael Cortez stood in the doorway. His eyes moved from Carter to Amara. Slow, sharp, unmistakable. He smiled, like someone who had just walked into a room he already owned. "Good morning?" Raphael stepped fully into the kitchen, letting the door swing shut behind him. No rush, no discomfort. He walked like the room already owed him space. His suit was the kind tailored so precisely it implied wealth without needing to display it. His expression was warm, practiced, familiar. Everything about him was exactly as the world expected him to be. Except the eyes. The eyes were measuring. He looked at Amara first. "Chef Pierce," he said, pleasant, polite. "I've heard remarkable things about last night's menu. The guests were impressed." Amara didn't respond. The silence was intentional. Raphael's attention shifted to Carter, and the warmth in his voice sharpened, subtly, like citrus under sweetness. "You could have called me back. I've been trying to reach you." Carter didn't step toward him, didn't look away either. "I needed time," he said. Raphael nodded slowly, like someone grading an answer. "Time," he repeated. "Yes, everyone needs time when misunderstandings surface." The emphasis was slight, not strong enough to be accusation, just enough to plant suggestion. The kitchen remained still around them. Pans polished, counters cleared, morning light settled across the steel. Raphael placed both hands on the edge of the prep table, casual, as if steadying conversation. "I'm here because people are talking," he said. "The board, the donors, they're asking questions. They feel unsettled, especially with certain circles resurfacing." He didn't look at Amara when he said it. He didn't need to. Carter didn't move. "What exactly are they asking?" he said. Raphael smiled, a slow one, the kind that arrives before the knife. "They're asking whether your recent decisions are grounded in logic or influence." A quiet passed there, not loud, not dramatic, just precise. Carter's voice remained calm. "You mean Amara?" "I mean," Raphael replied, "history." He walked around the table, not close enough to threaten, but close enough to claim presence. "We built something stable," he said. "Elegant, respected, philanthropic. You and I, we grew it carefully. Reputations like ours require discipline and distance from scandals." The word settled intentionally. Scandals. Amara stood still. Her face did not react. Her breathing did not shift. Carter's voice came low. "Tell me something," he said. "When you stood on camera in Chicago, when you confirmed the story about the fire, what exactly were you protecting?" Raphael didn't blink. "My investment," he answered. The honesty didn't cleanse anything. It simply exposed it. Carter's hands closed slowly at his sides, not fists, steadying, anchoring. "And who built that investment?" he asked. Raphael stepped closer now. Not enough to touch, just enough to control the air between them. "You and I did," he said. "Together. And now you are at a crossroads. You can continue shaping what we created, or you can burn it down to chase a narrative that leads nowhere useful." Carter didn't look at Amara. He didn't need to. He already knew which path was being drawn out in front of him. Raphael's gaze softened again, almost gentle. "Let her go," he said quietly, as if offering mercy. "People forget stories quickly. Don't give them a reason to remember." The silence that followed was not hesitation. It was choice forming. Carter spoke, voice steady and unmistakably resolved. "I'm not letting anything go." Raphael's expression did not crack, but something behind it shifted. Thin, sharp, predatory. "I see," he said. He looked at Amara once more, but this time not with dismissal, with calculation. Then he stepped back, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the exit. Just before he reached the door, he paused. Without turning, he spoke. "Be careful, Carter. When you stand beside someone, you inherit their enemies." The door opened, closed. Silence filled the kitchen again, deeper now. Amara and Carter remained where they stood. No words, no reaction, just the understanding that everything had moved, and there was no going back. The kitchen felt different after Raphael left. The air was still, but not empty. Something remained, like the pressure drop before a storm. Carter didn't move at first. His hands rested against the counter, head lowered slightly, as if aligning the pieces of something long avoided. Amara didn't interrupt. She watched him with that same steady presence she brought to every flame she controlled. Finally, he straightened. "I need proof," he said. Not anger, not panic, just direction. Amara gave a single nod. "I know where it is." He looked at her fully now. "Where?" Her eyes held his. Not dramatic, not teasing. This was simply the hinge on which the entire story would turn. "In Chicago," she said. The city name sat in the air like an echo. He knew what returning there meant for him. She knew what it meant for her. He didn't delay. "When do we leave?" "Tonight." She didn't ask if he was sure. She didn't check his resolve. They had passed the point for uncertainty. The flight out of Atlanta was quiet. No private jet, no entourage. Just 2 seats in the back of a red eye that smelled like recycled air and cold coffee. Carter sat by the window. Amara sat beside him. They didn't speak much. The silence wasn't awkward. It was concentration. The world below them was dark and wide. City lights passed like constellations reflected on water. Somewhere over Tennessee, Amara closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to remember something on purpose, the way a person steels themselves before reopening an old wound. Carter didn't interrupt her thoughts. He was lost in his own. He had once believed his success was built on integrity, discipline, ethics. But now he understood. Legacy meant nothing if the foundation was rot. He turned slightly toward her. "Why didn't you fight the accusations?" he asked. Her eyes opened, but she didn't look at him. "I did," she said. "But they had a head start, and a louder microphone, and I was young enough to think truth was something that revealed itself on its own." Carter studied her profile, the quiet strength, the patience forged in consequence. "No one stood with you," he said. "No one could," she replied. "Not then." He didn't respond, not because he disagreed, because he understood what she wasn't saying. She hadn't forgiven it. She had simply survived it. They landed in Chicago just before dawn. Cold air hung in the terminal. The city carried a different kind of silence than Miami or Atlanta, heavy, industrial, familiar with ghosts. They didn't take a car service. They walked. Amara led him through streets she once knew intimately, corners where food trucks used to gather, alleys that smelled of spice and exhaust, murals faded by winter. Then they reached it, the old food truck lot, now empty, fenced, forgotten. But she didn't stop there. She led him to a storage facility bordering the river, a place with no sign, no attention. She punched in a code. The metal door rolled upward. Inside, only one object waited, a single fireproof lockbox. She knelt beside it. The key was already around her neck. She unlocked it. Inside were a handwritten recipe notebook, supplier invoices, ventilation inspection reports, maintenance logs, copies of internal emails, and one photograph. A photograph that shouldn't have existed. Carter crouched beside her. She handed him the photo, face down. He turned it over. The image was of Raphael and Tessa, standing beside the burned truck, smiling, not mourning, not shocked, smiling, and behind them, a man signing documents, the same man who had given Carter the original Chicago incident report, the board liaison, the one he had trusted. Carter didn't speak. His breathing changed, slow, controlled, not breaking, reshaping. Amara didn't touch him. She didn't move. She simply said, "This is where the truth begins." Carter closed the box, not gently, with purpose. He stood. "So we burn their story," he said. No, Amara replied. We replace it. They didn't return to a hotel. They didn't stop for food or warmth. They walked straight from the storage building to the riverfront, the cold rising from the water like breath from something ancient and watchful. Carter held the lockbox in one hand, not like evidence, like truth with edges. The city was waking around them. Delivery trucks, bus brakes, commuters wrapped in layers of winter fabric. But here, on the concrete overlooking the water, it felt like the city had paused. Amara leaned against the metal railing, watching the first shape of sunrise bleed into the sky. Carter stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder but not touching. They already know we're here, he said. Yes, she replied. It doesn't matter. No. Silence settled again, not waiting, measuring. He opened the lockbox again, flipping through documents slowly, deliberately. Then he froze on one page. A contract, stamped, signed his signature, his. Raphael didn't just use your story, Amara said. He used your name to authorize the takeover. The legal acquisition was processed under your authority, even though you were never informed. The realization didn't come like shock. It came like ice spreading beneath the skin. Carter looked down at the paper as if seeing a part of himself for the first time. He forged it. No, she said quietly. He engineered it. He placed documents in front of you when you were signing end-of-quarter approvals. You trusted him. You didn't look closely. You never had reason to. Carter's jaw locked. The betrayal was not explosive. It was surgical. Amara watched the city light grow brighter on the water's surface. You were loyal to him, she said. Not accusation, recognition. Carter spoke without looking at her. He was the closest thing I ever had to family. His voice didn't waver. That was what made it brutal. Amara nodded once. And that is why he chose you, she said, because loyalty makes the cleanest shield. People will believe a lie if the person telling it stands close enough. A gull cut across the sky. The wind shifted. The city woke completely. Carter closed the box. When he spoke again, there was no strain left. Only clarity. I will expose him. Amara didn't answer. She waited, because there was something else, something deeper, something harder. And Carter finally said it. But I will not let your name be the headline casualty of this. She turned her head to him, not surprised, not softened, but seen. He continued. We won't just take back the truth. We will return your story to you, your identity, your legacy, the recipe, all of it. Amara's inhale was slow, measured. This was the moment she had protected herself from believing in. Carter looked at her, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone he would stand beside at full height. We do this together, he said. A beat. The winter air stilled, but Amara shook her head. Not refusal, adjustment. No, she said, not together. He stared at her. She stepped closer, not touching, but letting the air change between them. You lead in daylight, she said. That's who you are. You stand in boardrooms, foundations, headlines. You speak and people turn to listen. Her voice remained soft, steady. I don't lead in daylight. I lead in fire. I move where truth is hidden. I pull roots where rot hides. I rebuild from ash. Neither turned away. Neither overpowered the room. The balance was exact. You and I, she said, don't stand in the same place. We stand on the same path. Carter breathed in once, slow, understanding shaping him, not knowledge. He nodded. Then we move forward, he said. Amara picked up the lockbox, and just as they turned to leave, a phone vibrated. Not his, hers. Caller ID Simone Reyes, investigative food journalist. The first person who ever believed Amara, the one who disappeared from the news cycle the same month the fire report closed. Amara's thumb hovered over the screen. Carter watched her face. She answered. She didn't speak. Simone's voice came through. They know you found the proof. You both need to leave Chicago. Now." The line went dead. They didn't run at first. Running invites attention. Running confirms truth. Instead, they moved with purpose. Carter and Amara crossed the river bridge, neither speaking, both scanning, side streets, intersections, reflections in windows, not paranoia, calculation. Chicago had a rhythm, and Amara knew it, when the city was watching, when it was listening. They walked until they reached a cafe that had just unlocked its doors for morning service. The barista hadn't yet turned on the music. The smell of roasted beans mingled with cold air drifting in from outside. They sat at a corner table, Carter facing the door, Amara with her back to the wall. The lockbox sat between them, closed. No one else in the cafe seemed to notice them. People ordered espresso, typed into laptops, checked weather apps. The city continued, unaware of the fault line about to open beneath it. Carter didn't touch his drink. "She said they," he said. Amara nodded. Tessa and Raphael were never the center of this. They were hands in a larger machine. He understood without clarification. The board, the investors, the network that profited from silence and erased origin. He exhaled slowly. "They'll try to discredit you again," he said. Publicly. "They'll try to discredit you first," she replied. He didn't argue. He knew. His foundation, his clean image, his standing in philanthropic circles. Everything had been built in proximity to Raphael's power. Removing Raphael meant removing the scaffolding that held his world upright. Amara rested her hands flat on the table. "Before this goes forward," she said, "you need to understand something." Carter looked at her. She didn't look away. "When this truth comes out, I don't get to walk into rooms as the misunderstood chef who was cleared of wrongdoing." Her voice was still, controlled, real. "I walk in as the woman who was almost destroyed. People love redemption stories until they are forced to confront who did the destroying." Carter held her gaze. "And I don't get to walk back into the world as the respected benefactor," he said. "I walk back as the man who was blind, who signed away a life without seeing the hand guiding the pen." The honesty sat between them. Equal weight, equal cost. Amara nodded once. Then, "This is the point where most people step back." Carter didn't blink. "I'm not most people." The cafe door opened. A gust of cold wind entered. No threat. Just time moving. Amara softened, not in expression, but in presence. The kind of shift that happens when someone recognizes they are not alone in the fire. She opened the lockbox. Inside, the recipe notebook rested on top. Worn edges. Ink smudged by time and heat and memory. She turned it toward him. "You once asked me who taught me to cook like this," she said. He waited. "It wasn't a person," she said. "It was a lineage, a love story, a survival story, a history carried forward because we refused to disappear. And when they tried to take it, they didn't just steal flavor. They stole belonging." Carter listened with the kind of stillness that meant he wasn't preparing an answer. He was receiving the truth. "I'm not fighting for reputation," Amara said. "I'm fighting for a name." Her fingers traced the cover of the notebook. He reached out, not to touch her hand, not to take the book, but to rest his palm beside hers, close, equal, aligned. "Then we restore it," he said. The moment was quiet, full, undeniable. A shadow crossed the front window, not dramatic, not obvious, just the shape of someone pausing where they shouldn't. Amara's gaze flicked upward. Carter saw it too. No panic, just recognition. The story had moved ahead of them. They stood together. No whisper, no nod, just motion. Amara closed the notebook. Carter lifted the lockbox. They walked out the back, disappearing into the alley before the shadow at the window stepped inside. The city swallowed them. No one in the cafe noticed they were gone. They moved through Chicago's back streets without hurry, without hesitation. Two figures threaded through the waking city, neither hiding, neither announcing themselves. just moving with purpose. Amara tightened her coat against the wind. Carter carried the lockbox close, not protectively, but with certainty. They turned down a narrow alley behind an old brick warehouse, not a dead end. A path, one that led to a door painted in flaking blue. Amara knocked once, waited, knocked again. The door opened. Inside stood Simone Reyes, the journalist who vanished from the story 6 years ago. Her coat was still buttoned, like she hadn't stopped moving either. Her eyes flicked from Carter to Amara to the lockbox. "So you brought it," she said. Amara nodded. Simone stepped back to let them in. No greetings, no reunion, no relief. Just the quiet acknowledgement of people who have seen the same war. Inside, the building was an abandoned print shop, dust still clinging to old rollers and metal frames. A perfect place for truth to grow before the world could stamp it out. Simone closed the door. "The board already knows you found proof," she said. "They're preparing statements, legal pressure, character assassination, all the usual tactics. You'll have hours at best, maybe less." Carter didn't react. Not fear, not panic, just readiness. "What do we do first?" he asked. Simone motioned toward a table where recording equipment had been arranged. Clean, simple, undeniably real. "You tell the truth," she said. Amara set the recipe notebook down carefully, like placing a name back where it belonged. Carter placed the lockbox beside it. The three of them stood together, a triangle built of one who had survived it, one who had uncovered it, one who could expose it. Simone powered on the microphone. The red light clicked. Amara lifted her chin, her voice steady. No tremor, no apology. "My name is Amara Pierce." The sound filled the room. And then, a sound outside. Footsteps, not hurried, not uncertain, approaching. The three exchanged one brief look. Not shock, not fear, recognition. The door handle turned. The microphone recorded the silence. And the story did not end. It merely opened.